I kind of I like sharing that. That's my weekend thing. I like to make my little videos. It's kind of like a moment to myself, with the grill.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to Slow Smoke Business. I'm your host, Jared Morgan. I gotta tell you, I'm pretty pumped up about this show today because we have my new friend Thierry on the show. Welcome, Thierry.
Thank you, Jared.
And Thierry Oliva is from grillculture.com, and he has all sorts of cool content on how to grill, how to make delicious things. Everything on his channel is all things meat, and so I gotta admit, Thierry, I'm a little nervous about this show because most of my episodes are mostly me talking business or whatever, and then I get a little off topic and people trying to get me back on when I want to talk about the grilling. This episode's going to be the exact opposite. I think we're going to be talking mostly meat this episode.
Well, I like that. This is my comfort zone, so I'm very happy because that way I'm not going to have to talk too much about business either. So that's good.
Thierry, your perspective on grilling, you're in Orange County, and so you've got the California. So as soon as I was like, oh my God, he's in Orange County, thank God I didn't try to make tri-tip, right? Because tri-tip is like the king of grilling in California. But I'm close, right? I'm actually making a picanha today, which is similar, and I'm hoping you're going to be kind when we start looking at this thing.
Oh, it looks good already, so.
Yeah. Let's get a little sneak peek. So this is an episode where I actually started this ahead of time. And if you're watching along on YouTube or Facebook, you can see we scored the top. And we had this beautiful fat cap on there. We've got that rendering kind of on the top there. And I love picanha because it I don't know. It's just like, it's just an easy way to make a cut of beef and slice it and make sandwiches or do a lot of different things with it. But it's not like steak, right, where you have to treat it like a steak and you've got all the things that go into making a steak. You can do all sorts of things with that. And plus it's fun to say picanha, right, which is a good one. So I want to get your thoughts on seasoning. Okay, so I seasoned this. I don't know if you're familiar with Malcolm Reed and How to Barbecue Right.
Yeah.
He's amazing. So I got his AP seasoning, which really comes off as kind of a brisket style seasoning. Right?
Gotcha.
Hashtag not a sponsor, Malcolm. Please get on the show. What are you doing? Get on my show. And then I found this one online, which I mixed it in there from Derek Wolf, which apologies to Derek. I don't know Derek, but I know his seasoning. This is a maple bourbon, which feels like pandering to me because I love all things bourbon, and it has this wonderful sweet flavor. So I thought it would be really neat to mix kind of the salty, peppery seasoning from what is kind of like a brisket rub with a sweet, paprika-laden kind of color-giving rub there. So that's what we put on that, and we'll see how it turns out here in a few minutes. So Thierry, what's your favorite thing to grill right now? Like, what is your right now? I know that probably evolves if you're like me, but if I was to tell you go, you want to cook something this weekend, what's your go-to?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm making tri-tip today.
Okay, all right. So is that your thing? You really like tri-tip?
I don't know. I think it's an easy one for the whole family. I have 2 young kids, and I guess like most of the young kids, they're pretty picky when it comes to food. So it's one of the very few recipes where we can all agree on, and we don't need to make 3 separate meals. So it's an easy one to make, and I make it sous vide. So
Okay.
I cook it 24 hours, take it out, and I just put it on the grill. It's done.
Sous vide sounds hard. It's really not. Like I don't want to say it's. I'm sure you can jack up sous vide, but like I have never. Every time I've ever done it, I've been like, why am I cooking any other way? Right? It's
Right?
just so you can't dry something out. It's not possible for the moisture to leave. Right? And gosh, you take it out. Do you when you take it out, do you sear it or anything like that when you get done?
I do, yeah. I mean, it looks ugly if you don't. So
Right.
I just can't look at it. I'm like, I can't eat that. I
Right.
have to have a nice sear on it. So do you often use the sous vide?
I've used it. I don't want to say often. I use it a few times, and I will. So I'm from the South, right? And so
Uh-huh.
I get some strange looks sometimes where I'm like, "Hey, listen." They're like, "Wait a minute, you gonna boil that steak, boy? You know, like you gonna boil that steak?" And I'm like, "No, no, no. Listen, sous vide." And and so I've done it with steak a few times. It's probably the most common thing I'll do if I sous vide something, and it's just outstanding because you can get it to the exact temperature that you want the internal temperature to be, and sort of keep it there, and then you pull it out, sear it, maybe season it just a touch more, and then you're ready to go, and it's just perfectly tender and juicy. It's fantastic, but I'd never heard of anybody doing tri-tip on that.
Yeah, you know what? It's the same thing. I felt the same way when I started sous vide. I was like, oh my gosh, it looks so complicated, and all that fancy equipment seems like it must be like hundreds of dollars just to buy a sous vide machine. It just turned out to be super cheap. So
Yeah.
I started making my tri-tip. I could never really get it done the way I wanted, like really done properly on the inside and with a nice crust on the outside. I would either get it too cooked on the outside and not enough on the inside, or the other way around. So I started sous vide, and then I never got it wrong that way. So I just stuck to it. So unless if I'm gonna really smoke for like hours, like a brisket or something, I'm
Yeah.
usually using sous vide.
So, and I sort of jumped into. We just started talking about sous vide. For those that don't know what sous vide is, can you tell them what that is?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it's a French technique that was invented a long time ago. I don't really remember when, but basically the idea is just that you have that little cylinder that you put in a bucket of water, and you just kind of like keep the water at a set temperature. So the sweet spot is the 130 degrees, because this is where the fats start rendering. So if you have any cut of beef that has a little bit of marbling, that's a great method, because that's the only way you can really maintain that steady temperature for a long period of time and get it to like render perfectly. And then you just give it a little sear, because otherwise it really looks ugly and it doesn't taste as good. So I like to
Yeah.
have that smoky flavor on the grill. So that's the nice little finished touch.
It's great. Now, I got to so this is of all episodes for this to happen on. This is great. So we're probably 100-ish episodes into slow smoke business, and this is the first time I use a pellet grill. I have an error code on my pellet grill right now. I'm trying to finish this piece of meat, and it has, like it's a computer program. It has given me an error code. So let me see what's going on here. Let me turn it. The tech world shows me the old turn it off and turn it back on again thing. How about that? And we're out of pellets. How about that? Big time. We're doing
That might explain it.
that may explain a lot of stuff. Do you ever pellet grill in your repertoire? While I put more pellets in mine.
I've been using those pellet smoking tubes.
Oh yeah,
only
yeah,
on
yeah.
some like steak recipe. When I want to have that big intense smoky flavor, then I just put the pellet tube right underneath, and it just like smokes slowly for about an hour. It gives it an amazing taste. But other than that, I've never used it. So
I'm
I'd love to
actually
hear your
I'm actually
feedback on it.
Well, for me, I'm actually putting pellets in right now. I've never done this on the show before, this much behind the scenes stuff, but you just pour the pellets here in the hopper, right? And these are, this is like which one is this? This is a apple, actually, which, I don't know. People say, oh, you got to use this wood or that wood. I think sometimes you can tell a difference. But it's very subtle, and it depends on what you're cooking, whether you're actually going to be able to tell the difference in the wood. But what this thing does is it pushes the pellets through a little auger and heats them up, and they smoke, and it creates heat and smoke, but you can really, really control the you can control the temperature. You can control the amount of smoke that you get. You put some temperature probes in there that are digitally monitored. And just for my lifestyle, like this makes so much sense for me because I'm busy. I'm running a couple of businesses, raising kids, do some charity work, all this other stuff. Everything's going on, but I love to grill. And so, a ceramic grill, which is a lot of fun, but there's so much prep work that goes into, trying to get the thing to the right temperature and then keep it there. It's too much. And so then I started years ago, I started using the ceramic grill, but then I got one of those digital fans that would measure the temperature and keep pushing more air in there. And I'm like, how is this different than a pellet grill at this point? Right. Yeah, it's just not. So the purists out there say this isn't real grilling, whatever, you're not in my backyard, so that's what I do. What do you like to cook on?
I'm using the PK grill. I don't know if you know, it's kind of probably similar to the ceramic grill that you were having, because I'm using the same thing. I just have that fan that's blowing the air in it. But I love it. I just really like the shape of it. I like, standing by the grill and smelling the smoke. But I totally hear it. I mean, with 2 kids at home, 2 young kids, being a full-time teacher, I have the same problem.
Oh, I can
Sometimes
imagine.
You just don't have the time for it.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, and you're also a full-time teacher. Now, I'd love to hear, it's so cool to hear somebody's story when you take a passion like you have for cooking and grilling meat and cooking meat, and you turn it into something like grill culture. So tell me how you got into this and where that kind of came from.
Well, I mean, I'm from a family of foodies. So since I'm a kid, I mean, I remember my mom was cooking. I think she's the one who kind of brought that whole international take on cooking. She was making recipes from France, making recipes from Africa, recipes from Asia. So she could do anything. I was always amazed by how much she could make. And my dad was the grill guy. But for my dad, grilling was throwing meat on the grill, and when it's brown enough, you just take it out. So I kind of grew up thinking, hey, that's grilling.
I think that's how it was for a lot of people. 30, 40 years ago, the culture wasn't we didn't have all the social media guys and the food channel and all these things really hammering home man, not only is this delicious, but you can do that too.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I found out about all that equipment when I arrived here. 2013, I arrived with my wife, and we just settled down in Orange County. And one of my friends invited me, and it's I'm going to make filet mignon. I'm like, oh, that's easy, I just went there, and I saw his thing. He had a huge machine with cables that were going everywhere and probe, and it was that sweet piece of meat. I was it was melting in my mouth. I was you know what? I was not grilling. I was just burning meat.
And there are some things that you can I mean, look, there's nothing better than a backyard hamburger and when you're grilling a hamburger, I don't know, especially if the patty's pretty thin, is the temperature all that sensitive? Nah, not really. Especially you're serving it to the family. It's probably not that big a deal. Now, if you're making a big juicy one, maybe. But to your point, with steak, with other things, it is the way you cook something, how long you cook it. So for me, when I really got into kind of the smoking thing, that's what they say, when you get to a certain age, you either get into World War II history or smoking meats, right? And so that kind of went the smoking meat direction, right? But when I got into it, I was fascinated with, it isn't just about, when you're smoking something, it isn't just about getting something to temperature. It's about how much smoke you can get to travel over the outside of that piece of meat to permeate into the fibers of the matter there, so that you get that flavor infused into it. And when you cut into it and you see the smoke ring, you can see that. But if you do too much, you can blacken the outside. It's kind of this delicate dance. And regardless of whether you're doing it over, in a pellet grill, which is digital, or you're doing it in a ceramic, or you're like Aaron Franklin down in Austin, Texas, who's the goat, right? And he's down there making brisket, and he's literally stacking logs together, right? Regardless of that, it's all sort of the same concept. You're traveling smoke over meat, and you're trying to get it to a temperature in a certain way so that it is tender and flavorful and moist and all of that. That's my manifesto of what it's about.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, yeah.
So what do you when you have people over? This is one of the things I wanted to ask you. You told me about I love to make tri-tip and everything else for my kids, but if you're hosting a party or you've got 10 or 15 people over and they're oh, Thierry, put some on the grill. What do you like to do in those situations?
Oh, to be perfectly honest, I tried that. That was such a nerve-wracking thing. My in-laws are usually coming at home, and when they arrive, when they just like step into the house, they want food like right away. Like really hungry. So when you're grilling on cold, it's kind of like hard. So one time I was making a brisket, and it just didn't turn out to be what I wanted to. And my mother-in-law was freaking out. She was
Ah!
yelling at me for food. My wife was upset at me. The kids were hungry, and then I was like, you know what? I need to change it. So whatever I do right now, I do it in sous vide. So
Oh,
usually I
okay.
kind of like go for filet mignon.
Okay.
Tends to make everyone happy. I
Yeah.
pair it with a nice sauce. So I just put my filet mignon the day before. I cook it overnight, and when they're ready, I just take it out and same thing, put it on the grill. It's more out of conveniency than really like, just like the taste of it. But other than that, I really like to, when I smoke and I'm not under pressure, I like to do ribs. It's my big
Ribs.
thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So
like those
let's
big ribs.
let's dive into that. So you going full style, or you going baby back? What are you?
Baby
What's your
back, yeah,
baby
yeah,
back? Okay. Are
yeah.
you a are you a dry smoked rib guy, or do you like to go with the? Oh, so you go dry. You don't glaze it with sauce.
I do glaze it because I mean, I like both.
Okay.
I think the kids prefer it with the glaze,
Yeah.
so I like to do it at the end. I can like baste it, just add a couple more hours on the grill, smoke it until I get that ring that you were talking about, and
Yeah.
and then they just come out perfect, juicy, they melt in your mouth. I don't know if they would qualify for, you know, contest winners because I feel like they kind of like fall apart toward the end. So I could work on the consistency, but they were good to me.
Yeah, but people love that though. I mean, so yes, if you're doing a competition style rib, it's not supposed to just disintegrate in your hands. It's supposed to have a little bit of, tug, and you're supposed to, it's supposed to have the right amount of like it stays on the bone, but it's tender when you bite it off. Whereas if you're just making them at home and you make them and literally like you hold up the bone and the meat falls off, everybody else is like, oh, it's so, and it does taste good, right? But you can I don't know. That's a preference thing. My family was always really big on ribs growing up, and they had this one style. My dad makes this incredible barbecue sauce where he starts with like a really basic barbecue sauce from the grocery store, and then adds all this stuff and glazes the
Oh,
ribs with that, and it's outstanding. They're like sticky and sweet, and I've never seen anyone eat my dad's ribs and not just think they were fantastic. But you know, it's also like he does it one very specific way. And so if I'm ever making ribs and I'm like, well, this time I wanted to try, they're like, what are you doing? Like, why are you, that's not, we make ribs. So it's very preference laden. Like when you do these kinds of comfort foods, ribs is always a comfort food in our family. I sometimes like to do them without sauce because I think it highlights the seasoning and the rubs and the meat and everything. And, that's just not for some people. Every sort of region has their own thing,
yeah, yeah.
which is why I was so like. So when you said you were from California, and it's such a joke about tri-tip. Like when I was, when I was running our business Procter U, we had a big contingent of employees out in California, and that's all they ever talked about was, oh, we're gonna do some tri-tip this weekend, and and barbecue out there meant grilling. Right. Whereas in the South, if you say barbecue, there is like smoke is in slow cooking
Yeah,
is
yeah.
usually in sauce and stuff. And you could say in California, you could say I'm barbecuing hamburgers or hot dogs, and people would go, in the South, you grilling anyway. It's just like it's different in terminology, but everyone out there was always talking about tri-tip, and if you just don't get tri-tip on this side of the country, in my opinion. You just don't see people do it. It's fantastic. I don't know why, but every sort of region kind of has this thing, and I guess that's a California thing.
Oh, it's a great cut of beef and super flavorful. I tried with I would definitely recommend if you're gonna try it the first time, I would go for Wagyu beef. I mean, they're
Oh,
super affordable if you go Wagyu, and they're just amazing. It's like a
yeah. Why?
perfect cut, to smoke. I feel like you just like with that big roast, you got like some uneven parts, and it just comes out perfect.
Yeah. Oh man, beef is good. So do you ever do chicken or poultry or anything like that?
I do. I mean, not as much as I'm kind of still like trying to figure out what is the secret of poultry and fish. I mean, I'm still like good with beef. I mean, ultimately, I'm trying my concept. I think there are so many great guys out there that are doing a great job with all the standard recipes, and so I've been trying to bring my international background to the cooking side. So I've been trying some like Thai skewers, different type of recipe that are more international. So yes, I've been experimenting a lot with
That's
culture
good. Now
now.
I have learned, by the way, that so it's now getting the pellets going again. So the first thing you got to do when it's smoking like this, you got to raise the lid, right? Because you don't want it to when it's reigniting itself. I actually had the
Oh,
lid. That smoke can ignite that's a PSA for people using pellet smokers. Like, so when they come and it's smoking like crazy like this, if I was to leave that lid on, it would blow that lid off in a second, right? When it
oh
finally,
wow.
yeah, it would pop it open because the smoke will ignite. Look at all the smoke that's coming through here. This is an all timer of an episode right here. We're getting into like crazy grill. I'm glad this happened on an episode where we were going to lean more into the cooking more than anything else. I think it's fine now. It's ignited. I think it's finally going, which is fine. The smoke has died down, and we can close the lid again.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know. I thought there would be a chimney somewhere.
When it's trying to ignite, those things start smoking. But if there's a big buildup of smoke and it ignites, like in the little pot at the bottom, all of the particles in that smoke will ignite for a second, and it'll just create like a right,
Ah,
and
I see.
you got to be careful. But if you leave the lid open, you're all good. Now, here's what I would love, right? So I would love to share a quick how-to on poultry with you because that's like one of my go-to things here in the South. But before I do that, I want you to tell me, because I don't know jack about making a good tri-tip, how do I need to prepare it, season it, and what sauce do I serve it with? Because you said you had a sauce that was a kind of a go-to thing.
Well, I mean, I think it depends for the tri-tip. So here's how I make it. So first,
Okay.
I think, and my dad always was telling me it's the secret of a good recipe. It's 80% the ingredient and then 20% the technique. So I try as much as possible to get either a tri-tip wagyu or one that has the fat cap on top.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't go for it. They're trimming it and they're just putting on the grill. If you're going to be smoking it, I guess it makes sense. But I like to keep that fat cap on, and then I put in sous vide. I usually I just season it with just plain basic salt and pepper, and I add maybe thyme or rosemary, whatever kind of like herb you like, and I just leave it there at 130 for 24 hours. I take it out, and then I remove the fat cap. Because
Oh, okay.
otherwise, when I put it on the grill, I get those flare up. So I guess
Yeah.
it's not too much of a problem if you have a Santa Maria grill or anything that has an adjustable level for grilling. But I don't. I just have like a plain grill. So I usually trim the fat cap and then I kind of like reapply another layer of seasoning underneath, just so it's evenly seasoned. And then I put it on the grill and I sear it. And the sear doesn't even last really long. It's like, I don't know, whatever, depending how grilled you like it and how
Yeah.
hot is your grill. I mean, it could be like up to 4 minutes, until I get like a nice crust on top.
What are you
And then I
seasoning it
serve it.
with?
Just salt and pepper.
Wow.
Yeah, I usually after not a lot of people do that, but to me it has made the most sense. And at first it was like very counterintuitive. So, but I just take it out of the sous vide bath and I rinse it. I remove all the seasoning. I put it underneath the sink and I just rinse it completely. I trim the fat off. It usually, if you cook it overnight like that, it just like falls off on its own. So it's really not hard. You just kind of like a little layer of silver skin that you need to kind of like trim. And then once it's completely clean and nicely rinsed, I just reapply like a little bit of salt and pepper. I don't put herbs at this point because the aroma from the herbs has penetrated the meat during the sous vide. And on top of it, you just put any thyme or anything like that, and you put it in the grill, it's gonna burn the herbs. So I just keep it with plain salt and pepper. a little bit of oil, and then I just put it on the grill. I try it also with mayo before I put the seasoning,
Oh,
which I think add really a good uh, like flavor on top, but my wife doesn't like it. She thinks it's a little too greasy. So I guess it's something, I mean, it works for me. So I guess it depends on people and taste, but that's a good experiment to do also on
okay.
occasion. And I just serve it like that, and I just kind of like slice it and like thin slices, and it just melts in your mouth. So it's perfect. But
Well, that's
when it
that's
comes to
really good.
sauce,
No, no. Okay,
usually
that's what I was fixing to hit you with. I want the sauce. What is the sauce?
I do a chimichurri sauce. I think it kind
Okay.
of like it pairs up really well because you have that acid based sauce, which pairs with like that kind of like more bold and oily piece of meat that pairs really well.
Oh,
I also try to make different type of sauce which go really well as well. But then it's just question of taste. I do like a blue cheese sauce sometimes or um, pepper sauce, like different kind of sauce, and it goes with. But chimichurri is I think is what pairs the best so far.
chimichurri. Okay, and so that's the official grill culture tri-tip. That's you have it right there. So I mean I love it. Slice it. Do you serve it on sandwiches or you just kind of serve it like it is?
No, I just serve it like it is. Yeah, I mean you can have it with sandwiches. I just like in my family, no, we're not really big into sandwiches, but it's good too.
That's good. So okay, so the official slow smoke business chicken. If you want a chicken recipe,
Uh huh.
this is the go-to. I don't think I've ever had a chance to share this on the show. Maybe I have, but it's so easy, right? So the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to get a whole. They call them whole fryer chickens, or basically just a whole chicken, right? The kind that you would get, and you would see them rotisserie it, but you get it raw, right?
Mm-hmm.
And make sure when you kind of clean it out, you go in. Sometimes they have the bag of like the giblets or whatever you want to call it, and you throw that away. You're not going to use that. And then kind of I usually like to wash it off a little bit with some water and then season it with I mean really any kind of rub. For me, I like a sweet rub, so anything with and you can even make your own. Some sugar, brown sugar, maybe a little paprika, some garlic, maybe some pepper, some things. But there's like literally a million different types of seasonings that you can do. Meat Church has got a lot of great ones. Obviously, this maple bourbon one I just talked about would be a great one on chicken. Season it however you want it. Put it on the grill. Get you something where you can measure the temperature, and you want to get it up to I think it's 165, right? And you want to try to make sure you're getting deep enough in there because poultry is a safety issue. You got to make sure you get that up to temperature. Can't serve it raw or rare. But what you're really trying to go for, you put your whatever you're cooking it on. You want to try to put it on a lower type temperature. I think if you're smoking, because you can get more smoke over the meat. But you're really looking. The best is if you can crisp up that skin of the chicken on the outside. You don't want it to be wet and pliable. You want it to be kind of crispy, and that's probably one of the best, most delicious parts of that chicken. Once you finally got that off of there, you take it off, you cut it. The breast is going to be great and nice and juicy, the good white meat. Of course, the dark meat's really good too. But you want to try to pair that with an Alabama white barbecue sauce, which is always my like go-to thing I'm advocating for people. I grew up in Florida, so I knew nothing about white barbecue sauce till I moved to Alabama. It's a mayonnaise-based barbecue sauce. It's like mayonnaise and cider vinegar and several other things to sweeten it and spice it up. It's outstanding, and it goes extremely well with grilled and smoked poultry.
Well, I
That's
totally have to try that. So that sauce is like you make it at home, or is it something I've never seen that sauce at the store?
Yeah, you don't. And most of the store bought ones that I've had were, they were okay. But yes, you can make it at home. It's super easy. You don't have to cook it or anything. It's mostly mayonnaise, cider vinegar, and then there's any number of. Everybody's got their own version of it, so you can Google. I have one. I should put it on social media. I have one that's kind of my go-to. It's got a little bit of. Actually, I mix it up a lot of times, but it's really about putting just a little bit of cayenne in it. You don't want to make it spicy. You just want it to kind of have some depth to it, right? But it's mayonnaise, cider vinegar, and sugar to sweeten it, and then you kind of have some different things. But the creamy and sort of acidity of that sauce paired with a well smoked piece of poultry, it's okay on red meat, but really on poultry, there's something about the way that tastes. And because it's mayonnaise based, you don't put it on really until right before you eat it. So you wouldn't baste it on there and cook it because it's mayonnaise. It'll do what you just said. It'll just kind of melt, render into like a greasy consistency. So you want to put it on right before you bite into it.
So do you brine it before?
You can, of course, you brine turkeys all the time. I don't. I don't really. I've never brined a chicken. I know people do that. But to me, as long as you season something really well, a chicken's not that big of a piece of meat. So if you season something, a lot of that flavor and the smoke is going to penetrate pretty deeply into the chicken because it's not that big. But you certainly can brine it. You got to be careful brining and then seasoning, and then because you can get something a little too salty or a little too much. But from my perspective, like the flavor comes from the smoke, the outside seasoning, and the sauce that you put over it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, I'll definitely try it out.
And I'm going to try the tri-tip too, which is like I gotta step my game up. Let's check on how we're doing here now that we've kind of come back from our error. The picanha is not that far from the tri-tip. It's the sirloin cap, as they call it. I'm not exactly sure what part of the cow is tri-tip. Do we know? I'm not sure that I know.
Tri-tip, it's I think it's closer to the bottom part, like closer to the sirloin, if my memory is correct. I might be wrong, so don't quote me on that.
I think we might be ready. Let's cut into this and see how we do. See how we did. Thierry, are you you're gonna be nice to me, right? If I cut into this and it doesn't like we had an error on my grill right in front of Grill Culture himself. That's rough. But take a look. I don't know if you can see that on the.
It looks
good,
nice,
right?
though. Are you serving?
Nice.
Are you serving it as a steak or as a roast like that?
I think I'm gonna serve it as a roast, right? I'm actually gonna just kind of saw into it and try a couple of pieces, and then this would be good on like sandwiches or something like that. And I season it so
your
well.
grill, can you sear something on your grill?
Yeah, it depends on which one you get. I also off camera. I also have a stainless steel cooktop too. So a lot of times I'll smoke something over there and then get that really, really hot on the cooktop and then just real quick on that. And that's a lot of fun. Kids love that. I'm still trying to work on my hibachi skills. Okay, this isn't.
So how does it look?
I don't know. That's pretty cooked. Get a little shot there. Nice.
Nice, yeah.
Kind of smoke ring to it. Let's see how we did. Oh, okay.
It's only 9:41, but maybe you're making me want to have a steak right now.
Yeah. Well, it's not. It's lunchtime here, baby. So we actually put the that maple bourbon on it, which is nice and sweet, and that married really, really well with the salty, other seasoning I put on it, the AP stuff, which was mostly like a brisket seasoning. Man, that turned out awesome. What are you cooking, Thierry?
Well, today, like I said, I'm making picanha for Christmas. I got
really?
2 tri-tip and 1 picanha, so it's gonna be. We have a big crowd here, so I'm gonna be cooking that this Christmas. Today I just do tri-tip. My parents are in town, so it's their favorite.
How are you? Does tri-tip and picanha cook very differently or no?
I just do the same thing with the picanha. The first time I tried the picanha, the flares just kind of like burned the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I sliced it. I couldn't cook it as a steak, so I tried to sous vide it, and then I just put it in the skewers, and just like that fat cap was just too much for the grill.
Intense, yeah. You go fat side up or down when you put it on the grill?
Oh, it's on the side because I slice it on steaks. So I
Oh,
kind of like I make it the Brazilian way. So it's kind of like on the skewers on the side, but it always leaks. The fat just kind of like falls off. So since I started trimming the fat off, it's really nice because you get that nice sear all the way around on the meat. So it comes out really good.
what is your what's your goal with grill culture? Obviously, you've got some cool stuff on there. You got a bunch of recipes that I've seen that I want to dive in and try. What is your like ultimate goal with grill culture?
Well, you know what? When I started grill culture, there was more for me to get some sort of like a creative outlet. When my second child, my son, was born, there was not really much that I was doing. So I got really much more into the cooking. There was no more like, long hikes or anything like that. So I just stayed at home and my wife and I just got into cooking and I kind of like I like sharing that. That's my weekend thing. I like to make my little videos. It's kind of like a moment to myself, with the grill. Gives me an excuse to tell my wife that I have to be by myself there. So I get a little moment on my own. I mean, I just like sharing it and I like to bring that international thing. I found that it's just always the same kind of recipe that seemed to be coming back. So I figure, you know what, I'm going to take a tagine and I'm going to kind of like try to adapt it for the grill. Not that anyone out there probably want to make a tagine on the grill, but I thought, you have so many amazing recipes in Asia, in Europe, in America. Let's just kind of like, adapt all of these for the grill.
What? And you
And
said that was a tagine? Is that what you said?
yes, yeah. So my family is my mom is Moroccan.
Okay.
So growing up, she would only make those keftas, those tagines, and it was always amazing. But that these are usually made in a certain way. You put in the oven or something. And I was like, you know what? Wouldn't it be nice if you kind of like take that recipe of tagine with the seasoning and kind of like adapt it so you can put it on the grill and
I'm
make
not
an
sure.
amazing kind of like stew or something with that type of seasoning.
I'm not sure. I know what kafta is, but I'm not sure I know what tagine is.
I know there are a lot of those recipes that are completely unknown. So, but this is how I started to experiment. This is how I turned it into a fun journey. I like to call it my journey around my culinary journey around the world. And I was like, I mean, you mentioned, Aaron Franklin. Like, I was like, I mean, his brisket is just so amazing. It's like, what else do you need to bring there? It's like, that's it. And then you
Right.
have so many others that have that. So I was like, I'm definitely not gonna. This is not what I'm gonna bring. But then some of my friends were like, we're kind of like bored to make all these same things, and then they tried my recipe and like, oh, can you send me the recipe? I'll definitely try that. I have some friends come over this weekend, and it started was like a basic like skewer recipe, and then it turns into something else, and then I was like, wow, I think this is what makes it fun, try these new recipes. So that's how I got into it. So ideally, it'd be nice to have a community of people who are sharing, their recipes from all around the world, and we can just try it out.
Well, I think it's really interesting. I love your take on you're not trying to do the same thing everybody else is doing, and I agree with you. Aaron Franklin, probably the king of brisket. Certainly, right now, is like the guy that everybody turns to. There's probably 20 people behind him that are better at cooking that particular meat in that style than I could ever dream of being myself, right? So why would you try to like even get in that conversation, right? Kind of, blaze your own trail. I totally agree. Like, I think that's a cool way to approach it. So is there something you have not yet tried on grill culture that you're excited you're trying to work into the future?
Well, my challenge actually for this break is to roast. I mean, it's been raining, so I haven't really been able to be outside. But I'm gonna try a Mediterranean roasted chicken, and I have a Serbian stew that I'm working on. So those are the
Whoa,
big things. And I'm gonna try with my mom that tagine.
that's that's
We'll
really
see.
really cool. Well, so Thierry, tell us where we can find grill culture. Obviously, we can find it on YouTube. Is it anywhere else?
Well, I have my blog, realculture.com, and I'm on all main social media, so mainly on Facebook and Instagram. So are the ones that I just took my personal account, turned it into a grill culture account, so that's that worked out.
That's so cool.
But, yeah.
That's really cool. Well, everybody go check out Grill Culture on YouTube and everywhere else. Thierry Oliva is a delight. He's teaching me all sorts of stuff. He's very kind at me having a grill malfunction out here right on the middle of the show. So I appreciate it. You know,
it would be barbecuing if you didn't have a malfunction at some point.
That's right. Something always happens. And I'm glad it happened with you because you understand that. Guys, go check out Grill Culture. Thank you so much. If you found a recipe or a technique on here that you thought was valuable and you think somebody else would enjoy it, please would you send that to that person? And make sure you like us and follow us everywhere. Follow us on social media. Give us a 5-star review. Whatever it is, please support the show. And we'll see you next time on Slow Smoke Business.